Huge call from Labor, the biggest political risk of Anthony Albanese's life on stage 3. And then we head to the Dunkley by-election to see what some voters at least make of it. Joining me live is Australian Financial Review political editor Phil Coorey. Thanks for your time.
Tom.
I think, yes, it's all on Labor and they've got to explain the change, and the broken promise is something I'll have to contend with. But fascinating to see where the coalition goes on this. I feel like they need something to differentiate themselves. Yes. Otherwise, you're calling out the broken promise and not doing anything about it. But what do you do for all the money handed out to low and middle income earners?
Well, there's two things here. One is they don't need the coalition's vote, because I'm pretty sure they'll get it with the Greens and Pocock and Lambie. So numerically, this thing's probably through the Senate already. And I really don't think Adam Bandt, the Greens leader, is going to hold out for something and not pass it, given the alternative is to enact stage 3 as already legislated.
That's the point. It's in.
It's not like he can stop it. So let's put that to one side. The coalition's reaction will be important. I've had numerous conversations with them. I think everyone is in broad agreement they will do nothing that will increase people's taxes. And should this package be legislated, there's no hope they'll go to the next election promising to roll it back. That's just not going to happen. You don't take tax cuts off people when they're already getting them. You can.
Even though Labor is doing that.
Well, they haven't got them yet. They haven't got them yet. It's not actually in the bank account.
So the difference between legislated and having hit the pocket is what you're talking about.
Yes, basically. So that'll be their starting principles when the shadow cabinet and then the rest of the party discusses this. I suspect they'll probably they'll try and amend this to keep it more in line with the original stage 3, but keep the 19% to 16% drop in the tax rate for people under 45, and then their amendments won't get up, and they may just sort of shoo it through. Do remember though, someone pointed out to me they did oppose the electricity power price relief because Labor bundled that all together as one big package, but they disagreed with the price caps on gas. But they're of the view they haven't suffered politically for opposing that. So,
and that was a 1-year thing that doesn't. It's not voted on the next
I think this is a bit more cut through a tax cut.
If the alternative is returning some part of stage 3 that Labor's not going ahead with, you run into a cost and inflation issue, don't you? You couldn't do the whole thing overnight, I don't think. No. Perhaps it's a longer-term plan that slowly builds those back into the system.
And it's hard. The point is, Tom, this has been now legislated for 4.5 years. It's a little bit unfair to demand what the coalition's going to do, given they're not the ones who've changed their position, if you know what I mean. But it does.
Well, they shouldn't have to make it up overnight. No, but all I'm saying is they do have to make it up.
But I think that they'll go to the next election and see what the state of the budget is and how much money's there before they make any sort of longer-term commitment. I think it's only fair. It's a bit like a reversal of 2019 when Labor lost the election and then Scott Morrison legislated stages 1, 2 and 3 all in one bill and didn't split them. So Labor felt wedged, so they just waved the whole package through.
Labor's sort of turning the tables on a booby trap in that sense.
Well, they're now, but they might have served them better if they had the kahunas to stand up back then and at least demand the bill be split.
Because we always had a sense they didn't want to enact it in full.
No one ever believed they did.
Perhaps the coalition has something, again, that takes a few years to roll out because it's hard to put all this back in overnight with the cost. But they'd be frustrated at sort of having to go, here's another 3-year plan to get this
look, in terms of reform, it's a massive setback. If you go back to the 2007 election where both major parties set out a long-term aspiration to get rid of one of the tax rates and flatten the tax brackets, and we finally sort of got there, and now to reinsert one and go back, it'll be a cold day in hell before this ever gets revisited, not just because of the cost of it, but because of the politics. So, I think the consequences of this for sort of far-reaching reform will be quite significant.
For Labor and the broken promise, that's obviously their difficulty because they never really liked stage 3. We knew that. They said they wouldn't change it. They did. You could apply the same to broad elements of taxes on housing, right, or the tax treatment of housing. The line today from the Treasurer, I thought, shifted from not changed our view to not contemplating. How much does that sort of
I think both those statements are utterly meaningless now because they were both variously used for stage 3. And as Malcolm Turnbull said, your position doesn't change until you change it. I think there's a problem now with all those assurances going forward. But at the same time,
out game, which we're criticised for as journalists, but this is why.
This is why we try to pin them down. I mean, it was interesting just before the end of the year, Anthony Albanese was asked twice in the Parliament about whether he had any plans to change the tax treatment of the family home. In both cases, he didn't give a concrete answer. So there'll be a lot of that when Parliament resumes for sure.
All right. Phil Coorey. The Parliament's back next week. We'll talk then. Thank
Easy
you.
peasy.